So these are some instructions for the witnesses that will be presenting and creating evidence in the Boston Massacre mock trial. That is going to be the people labeled Sons of Liberty for the prosecution and people labeled soldiers for the defense. So if you take a look at this list, we're talking about soldiers 1 and 2, that's Elizabeth and Dianera, and Sons of Liberty 1 through 4, that should be Pedro, Jeriana, Isaiah, and Tatiana. They will be creating evidence that will either help convict the soldiers or acquit the soldiers. And we're going to look at a couple of key terms that you're going to be using, and we're going to look at how you're going to put that evidence together. So if you look down here, trial part 3, this is where evidence is presented. Throughout the trial, lawyers will be able to present evidence that will strengthen their arguments, but we have a couple of pieces and evidence that you're going to physically create with things that we have or find around the room. A couple of examples that people have used in the past: a scorched jacket. So if somebody was standing near where the guns were fired, there would be marks on their jacket. A sworn testimony from a witness. A snowball, so they had the snowballs that were being thrown, some of them with perhaps rocks or oyster shells in them. And then you have the clubs that the rope makers used that were very threatening. So that'll be popping up in part 3. And down here you're going to have space where we're going to list the evidence that we create for the defense and list the evidence that we create for the prosecution. So there are two types of evidence that we're really focusing on, or terms that describe that evidence. The first one is inculpatory evidence. Inculpatory evidence. So inculpatory evidence is evidence that is going to reinforce guilt. So it's evidence that the prosecution is going to present to find somebody guilty. All right, so it's something that clearly says, hey, they did it. That's inculpatory evidence. So the Sons of Liberty in this case will want to create inculpatory evidence because they want the soldiers to be found guilty. The second type of evidence is exculpatory evidence. So exculpatory evidence is evidence that presents a alternate possibility. So it's exculpatory evidence. It would help you find them not guilty. So maybe the gun that they used, it has somebody else's fingerprint on it. Or maybe they have a witness that saw the person in a different place, so they couldn't possibly have been committing the crime. So exculpatory evidence is what helps someone get acquitted or be found not guilty. So in this case, that exculpatory evidence, that's going to come from the soldiers who don't want their fellow soldiers to be found guilty. So again, inculpatory is to reinforce the guilt of the accused. Exculpatory is to prove the innocence of the accused. And one of the ways that we're going to create or find this evidence is that on Tuesday at the beginning of class, I will be taking you on a tour of the Boston Massacre crime scene. We're obviously not going to Boston, but we will create a little space of our own, and we will visit the scene of the crime. And that'll be at the beginning of class Tuesday to give you a chance to pick your evidence. There are 3 types of evidence that fall under the inculpatory and exculpatory categories. So we are talking about physical evidence. So we will create some physical evidence. There's documentary evidence. This image that you're viewing right now might be considered documentary evidence. So it's something that portrays what went on or documents what went on. That's pretty simple. And testimonial evidence, which would be like witness statements, people that saw the event or saw something related to the event. So physical evidence, something that was present at the event; documentary evidence, something that memorializes what happened at the event; or testimonial evidence, something that was relayed or told to us about the event. And all 3 of those things could either be inculpatory, which is reinforcing the guilt, or exculpatory, which is showing the innocence of the accused. As the evidentiary witnesses, the soldiers and the patriots, the Sons of Liberty, we will be examining these different types of evidence.